Atomic habits, the tiny changes that rewire your life. Right now, you are exactly one habit away from being a different person 5 years from now. Not a new job. Not a new city. Not a New Year's resolution. One habit, repeated, quietly, every single day. That's the entire argument of one of the most influential personal development books of the last decade, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And what makes it dangerous is how small it sounds. People hear tiny habits and assume it means tiny results. It doesn't. Today, we're breaking down the core ideas in this book, not as a book report, but as a pattern you can actually use. Because the people who change their lives don't usually have more willpower than you. They've just figured out a system you haven't seen yet. Let's break it. Section 1. The math nobody talks about. Here's the idea: the whole book is built on habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you don't end up 365% better. The math compounds. You end up roughly 37 times better. And if you get 1% worse every day, you collapse towards zero just as fast. This is the part most people miss when they're chasing change. We're taught to think in single, dramatic moments: the one workout, the one good day, the one breakthrough. But Clear's argument is that those moments mean almost nothing on their own. What matters is the direction of a habit, repeated far longer than feels meaningful. He calls this the plateau of latent potential. Picture an ice cube sitting in a room that's slowly heating up 26 degrees. 27, 28. Nothing visibly happens. Then it hits 32 degrees and suddenly melts. The work wasn't wasted in those earlier degrees. It was being stored. Most people quit during the storage phase. They expect linear payoff from a process that's actually exponential, and they walk away right before the curve bends upward. So the first pattern to break: stop measuring a habit by whether it worked today. Measure it by whether it's still running. Section 2. You're not lazy, you're built this way. Here's where the book gets genuinely useful. Instead of just inspiring, it explains why habits form using something called the habit loop, and it has 4 parts. First, a cue, a trigger that tells your brain a reward is nearby. Second, a craving, the motivational pull toward that reward. Third, a response, the actual habit, the thing you do. And fourth, the reward, the payoff that teaches your brain this loop is worth repeating. Every habit you have, good or bad, runs on this exact loop. Scrolling your phone the second you feel bored. Reaching for sugar after a stressful email. Lacing up your shoes the moment your alarm goes off. Same 4-part structure every time. And this matters because it means habits aren't a character flaw. They're a feedback loop your brain built to keep you alive efficiently, and the loop doesn't care whether the outcome is good for you. It only cares whether it worked last time. Once you see your own behavior as a loop instead of a moral failing, something shifts. You stop asking, "Why am I so undisciplined?" and start asking a much more useful question: which part of this loop can I redesign? That question is the foundation for everything that comes next. Section 3. The 4 laws of behavior change. This is the operating system of the entire book. 4 laws, each one corresponding to a piece of the habit loop. Learn these, and you have a toolkit for building almost any habit or breaking almost any one you didn't choose on purpose. Law 1. Make it obvious. You can't build a habit you keep forgetting to do. The brain runs largely on cues in the environment, so the goal is to make the cue impossible to miss. One simple tool here is something like an implementation intention, deciding in advance exactly when and where a behavior will happen, instead of leaving it to vague motivation. "I'll work out sometime today" almost never happens. "I will do 20 minutes of strength training at 7 a.m. in my living room" actually does, because the brain now has a specific trigger waiting for it. Law 2. Make it attractive. We're far more likely to repeat a behavior the brain finds appealing in the moment, even if it's bad for us long term. This is why temptation bundling works, pairing something you need to do with something you want to do. Only watch your favorite show while on the treadmill. Only listen to that podcast during your work commute task you've been avoiding. You're not forcing discipline, you're making the behavior more desirable to your own brain chemistry. Law 3, make it easy. This is probably the most underrated law, and it's the one that quietly explains most failed habits. Motivation is unreliable, friction is not. So the real lever isn't trying harder, it's reducing the number of steps between you and the behavior. Want to read more? Leave the book open on your pillow. Want to stop a habit? Add steps back in, put the junk food in the back of a high shelf. Log out of the app, delete the icon. There's a concept here called the 2-minute rule. Shrink any new habit down until it can be done in 2 minutes or less. Not read for 30 minutes, read 1 page. Not meditate for 20 minutes, sit down and take 1 breath. It sounds almost too small to matter. And that's exactly the point. You're not trying to get results in 2 minutes. You're trying to master the habit of showing up, because once showing up is automatic, scaling it is easy. Showing up inconsistently is what kills people, not lack of intensity. Law 4. Make it satisfying. This is the law most self-help advice quietly ignores, and it's a big reason healthy habits fail while unhealthy ones thrive. We're wired to repeat behaviors that feel rewarding immediately, and most good habits don't pay off for weeks or months. Exercise doesn't feel amazing on day 3. Saving money doesn't feel amazing when the balance barely moves. The fix is to manufacture an immediate signal of progress. Some people use a simple habit tracker, crossing off a calendar square, moving a paperclip from one jar to another. It sounds almost childish, but it gives the brain a small, immediate hit of "this is working," which buys you enough patience to reach the long-term payoff that was the real point all along. 4 laws. Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. And to break a bad habit, you simply invert each one, make it invisible. Unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying. Section 4, the idea that changes everything. Here's the part of the book that tends to land the hardest. And it's not a technique, it's a complete reframe of what a habit even is. Most people set goals around outcomes. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a book. I want to run a marathon. Clear's argument is that outcome-based goals are weaker than they look because they're temporary targets. You hit the goal, the motivation that drove it often disappears with it. The deeper layer is identity-based habits. Instead of "I want to lose weight," the question becomes, what would a healthy person do? Instead of "I want to write a book," it's "what would a writer do today?" Every time you complete a small action, you're not just checking a box, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. One workout is a vote for "I am someone who takes care of their body." 1 page written is a vote for "I am a writer." No single vote changes who you are, but run that election enough times, and eventually the identity itself becomes self-reinforcing. You stop forcing the behavior because it's simply who you are now. This is the actual mechanism behind lasting change, not motivation, not discipline. A slow, repeated election where you're the only one voting, and the votes happen to be habits. So here's the pattern to take with you. You are not behind because you lack willpower. You're behind because the system around you was never designed to make the right behavior obvious, easy, and satisfying, and the wrong one effortless. Change the system even slightly, and the results stop depending on how motivated you feel on any given Tuesday. Pick one habit, make the cue obvious. Make the first step embarrassingly small, and give yourself one tiny piece of immediate evidence that it's working. That's not a small change. That's compound interest, quietly working in your favor while everyone else is waiting for a dramatic moment that was never going to come. Think differently. Live intentionally. I'll see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and keep breaking the pattern. See you in the next episode.